Hollywood, the land of fame, fortune, and flawless public images. But what happens when the masks slip? Some stars denied it, some apologized, and others didn't even bother, from jaw-dropping racial slurs to full-blown blackface scandals. These celebrities were dragged, cancelled, and in some cases erased from Hollywood history. Stick around, because number one is so explosive it rocked the entire industry. Let's count down the worst Hollywood scandals, and trust me, some of these names will leave you stunned. Number 1, Walt Disney. Walt Disney built a global empire, charming the world with Mickey Mouse and fairy tale dreams. But behind the polished image, former employees tell a far less magical story. While some defended Disney's character, others, like animator Bill Melendez, painted him as deeply biased, a man who wasn't nearly as wholesome as he appeared. Disney's troubling actions weren't just rumors. His associations with Nazi filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl and discriminatory hiring practices exposed a racist and sexist culture under his leadership. A 1938 company letter bluntly refused to even consider women for creative roles, laying bare the ingrained gender discrimination at Disney Studios. His films also carried the stain of prejudice, from the offensive crows in Dumbo to the controversial portrayal of race in Song of the South. Shockingly, it wasn't until 1957 that Disney hired his first African-American animator, Floyd Norman, decades after the company had already shaped the childhoods of millions. Behind the smiling mascot and colorful castles, Walt Disney's true legacy is far more complicated and far less innocent than the world ever imagined. Number 2, John Wayne. For generations, John Wayne stood tall as the face of American heroism, a towering 6'5" symbol of grit, glory, and rugged masculinity. With his unforgettable roles and an Oscar win for True Grit in 1970, the Duke seemed larger than life, but behind the silver screen a far darker truth lingered, one that would eventually stun even his most loyal fans. In a bombshell 1971 Playboy interview, Wayne openly expressed support for white supremacy and made degrading remarks about Native Americans, views that felt shockingly out of touch with the civil rights era. His unfiltered comments about race, land rights, and justice exposed a deeply troubling side of the Hollywood icon the public had never seen before. The cracks in Wayne's legendary image deepened when Marlon Brando sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to decline an Oscar on his behalf, protesting Hollywood's portrayal of indigenous people. Backstage, Wayne reportedly became so furious that security guards had to physically hold him back from charging the stage, a chilling glimpse into the anger behind the legend. While Wayne's career weathered the storm during his lifetime, his legacy has not escaped judgment. Today, his name continues to spark fierce debate, with many demanding the removal of public honors bearing his name. A lasting reminder that even Hollywood's biggest heroes can leave behind the darkest shadows. After hearing about John Wayne, we want to hear from you. Comment your country below. Let's see how far the truth about Hollywood can travel. Number 3, Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson, once celebrated for his intense performances and action hero image, left the world in disbelief in 2019 after a chilling admission from his past surfaced. While promoting his film Cold Pursuit, Neeson voluntarily shared a story that shocked even his biggest fans. Decades earlier, after someone close to him was harmed by a black man, Neeson admitted he had spent days wandering the streets with a weapon, consumed by rage, blindly hoping to confront any black man he could find. He called it a moment of shame and personal reckoning, but the damage was immediate. The backlash was swift and unforgiving. Critics accused Neeson of revealing a disturbing mindset shaped by dangerous racial stereotypes. The fact that he confessed so openly only amplified the outrage, exposing an ugliness that many found impossible to ignore. Although Neeson later issued public apologies and insisted he had sought healing through confession and reflection, the story left a deep scar on his reputation. For countless fans, the revelation forever changed how they saw him, a dark, unsettling chapter that continues to cast a heavy shadow over his once untouchable career. Number 4, Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber's rise to fame was the stuff of dreams, a sweet-faced 13-year-old YouTube sensation who seemed destined to stay forever innocent. But behind the catchy songs and angelic smile, a darker reality lurked, one that would explode into public view years later. In 2014, The Sun exposed a chilling video from 2011. In the footage, a teenage Bieber lounges casually in a chair among friends. Then, laughing, he launches into a racist joke, using the N-word repeatedly while mimicking chainsaw noises. "Why are black people afraid of chainsaw?" he begins, before finishing the punchline with racial slurs. Even more disturbing was the reaction in the background. Some friends nervously tried to stop him, showing they knew how wrong it was, yet no one truly intervened. The scandal erupted at the worst possible time for Bieber, who was already spiraling. Legal troubles surrounded him, a DUI charge in Florida, an assault case in Toronto, and a criminal investigation for allegedly trashing a neighbor's home. The video added yet another crack to the crumbling image of the boy who once captured millions of hearts. Some insiders later admitted that Bieber's team even suggested he could have used motorcycle instead, a shocking detail that revealed how those around him were more focused on damage control than accountability. Justin Bieber's story became yet another harsh reminder. Fame may come fast, but when corruption rots the core, the fall is just as swift and just as brutal. Number 5. James Stewart. James Stewart, forever remembered as Hollywood's quintessential all-American hero, built a career on playing characters defined by integrity, honesty, and moral courage. But behind that wholesome image, Stewart's private political views revealed a much more complicated and polarizing side. Throughout his life, Stewart was a staunch conservative, and during the height of the civil rights movement, he quietly opposed many progressive changes. Although he rarely made overt public statements, Stewart was known to support political candidates who resisted civil rights legislation and upheld segregationist policies during the 1950s and 1960s. His deep alignment with conservative causes sometimes put him at odds with the sweeping social reforms that were reshaping America. Moreover, Stewart's support for institutions like the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, which blacklisted countless actors, writers, and directors suspected of communist sympathies, showed a willingness to side with policies that suppressed freedom of expression in the name of patriotism. While many of his contemporaries risked their careers fighting for justice and equality, Stewart largely remained silent or backed establishment forces, resisting change. Today, while Stewart's film legacy remains beloved, his political choices remind us that even Hollywood's most iconic good guys were not without contradictions, raising lasting questions about how personal beliefs can complicate public heroism. Number 6. Henry Ford. Henry Ford revolutionized manufacturing with the assembly line and the groundbreaking $5 workday, but his true legacy is far more sinister. Using his immense influence, Ford pushed anti-Semitic conspiracy theories through his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, propaganda so extreme it earned praise from Adolf Hitler himself. While Ford publicly championed higher wages, he brutally controlled his workers' personal lives. He sent inspectors into employees' homes, ensuring they conformed to his rigid moral code. His Americanization program stripped immigrants of their cultural identities, while his factories quietly upheld racial segregation. Ford's iron grip extended to the factory floor. His fierce anti-union stance erupted in violence, most notoriously at the Battle of the Overpass in 1937, where union organizers were savagely beaten by Ford's hired enforcers. Behind the image of innovation and progress, Henry Ford left a trail of control, racism, and violent oppression, a chilling reminder that not all pioneers were heroes. Number 7. Donald Trump. Few figures in modern history have ignited as much controversy as Donald Trump, and few have so repeatedly found themselves accused of fueling racial divisions. One unforgettable moment came during a presidential debate in a darkened auditorium, when Trump declared, "I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience." It was a bizarre defense, but it didn't appear out of nowhere. The story of Trump's racial controversy began long before that night, with a golden escalator ride in 2015 that changed American politics forever. During his campaign announcement at Trump Tower, Trump made explosive comments about Mexican immigrants, setting a tone of racial tension that would shadow his entire presidency. And it didn't stop there. His policies and public statements poured gasoline on the fire. The so-called Muslim ban targeted travelers from Muslim-majority countries. After the deadly Charlottesville rally, Trump insisted there were very fine people on both sides, a statement that horrified much of the nation. In another infamous moment, he told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by, a phrase many interpreted as a thinly veiled call to arms. Critics compared his communication style to a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn. Messages that, while sometimes superficially innocent, were seen as openly signaling to extremist groups. Throughout his presidency, Trump's comments about his whole countries, his attacks on Black Lives Matter protesters, and his constant inflammatory rhetoric fanned the flames of racial division at every turn. Despite his repeated insistence that he was the least racist person, the evidence left a different impression. Donald Trump didn't just ignore America's racial tensions. Many believe he amplified them at every possible opportunity. Donald Trump's influence still shakes the world. Do you think the new US tariffs are a smart move or a disaster in the making? Comment 1 if you support the tariffs, 0 if you think they will only cause more chaos. Number 8. Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby's smooth voice and charming smile made him a beloved symbol of American Christmas, but behind the warm melodies, a much darker reality lurked. Born in 1903, Crosby rose to fame during an era when racism was deeply woven into entertainment. While he famously befriended Louis Armstrong and promoted African-American artists, his own career was far from clean. Crosby participated in at least 4 blackface performances, a practice rooted in vicious racial mockery. Even in the 1954 holiday classic White Christmas, he performed Mandy, a song born from the minstrel shows that dehumanized Black Americans. Despite his respect for talents like Armstrong, Crosby casually used racial slurs off stage, reflecting the ugly social norms he quietly upheld. Like many of his contemporaries, including Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland, Crosby played a part in preserving harmful stereotypes that Hollywood spread to millions. Number 9. Don Imus. Many Hollywood legends got their start in radio, but few fell from grace as spectacularly as Don Imus. For 30 years, Imus in the Morning dominated the airwaves, with Imus becoming famous and infamous for pushing the boundaries of humor. Some even called him a good-natured racist, a man who made controversial jokes and somehow kept getting away with it. Until 2007. On live radio, Imus crossed a line that even he couldn't joke his way out of, referring to the Rutgers women's basketball team as nappy-headed hoes. Outrage exploded across the country. Civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson demanded action, turning public anger into an unstoppable force. NBC and CBS first tried to calm the storm with a 2-week suspension, but it wasn't enough. Facing mounting pressure, both networks ultimately fired Imus, ending his reign overnight. Yet even after the disgrace, Imus found a way back. Less than a year later, he returned to the airwaves on WABC, building a new cast and trying to rebuild his shattered career. He continued broadcasting until his death in 2019 at age 79. Number 10. Paula Dean. For years, Paula Dean was the beloved face of Southern cuisine, known for her rich, indulgent recipes and warm, welcoming charm. Her shows, best-selling cookbooks, and successful restaurants painted a picture of perfect Southern hospitality. But everything changed when a scandal shattered her image. It all started when Lisa T. Jackson, a manager at one of Dean's restaurants, filed a harassment lawsuit. During the proceedings, Dean shockingly admitted under oath to using racial slurs in the past. But the real bombshell came when she described a troubling fantasy, a plantation-style wedding for her brother, inspired by a restaurant where Black employees were dressed in white jackets and black bow ties. It sounded like something straight out of the darkest days of America's history. The public response was immediate and unforgiving. This wasn't just about offensive words anymore. It revealed a disturbing mindset that left even her most loyal fans in disbelief. In a desperate attempt to salvage her crumbling career, Dean flooded YouTube with tearful apologies, claiming, "Color of your skin, your religion, your sexual preference does not matter." But for many, her apologies fell flat, more a defensive move from someone who was sorry she was caught. not truly regretful for her actions or beliefs. Number 11. Anthony Kumia. For nearly 20 years, Anthony Kumia was half of the infamous radio duo Opie and Anthony, known for pushing boundaries and making millions laugh and sometimes cringe. Their show thrived on Sirius XM, skating the line of controversy but never fully crashing over it. Until one reckless moment ended it all. In 2014, Kumia was casually taking photos in Times Square, a hobby he often enjoyed. When a woman accidentally stepped into one of his shots, an argument broke out. Instead of walking away, he unleashed a furious racist tirade on Twitter, calling the woman a savage and spitting out hateful comments about black people and violence. He might have thought the internet would forget, but Gorka made sure his words were saved forever. Sirius XM, no stranger to controversy from Kumia before, could no longer protect him. His tweets were too toxic, too public. The company swiftly suspended him, declaring his behavior wholly inconsistent with their values. Just like that, a partnership that had lasted a decade was shattered. Number 12. Roseanne Barr. In 2018, Roseanne Barr was riding a wave of unprecedented success. Her hit show Roseanne had roared back to television after more than 2 decades, delivering ABC its highest ratings in over 10 years. Fans and critics alike celebrated the return of the sharp-tongued queen of sitcoms. But in a single night, everything collapsed. Late one evening, Roseanne posted a racist tweet targeting Valerie Jarrett, a former advisor to President Obama. Comparing Jarrett, a woman of color, to a character from Planet of the Apes, Barr crossed a line so shocking that the internet and Hollywood erupted in fury. ABC didn't hesitate. Despite the show's massive success and a new season already in the works, they cancelled Roseanne immediately. Hundreds of cast and crew members lost their jobs overnight, all because of one woman's hatred in 280 characters. Roseanne scrambled to save herself, firing off apology tweets and blaming her behavior on Ambien. But any chance of redemption crumbled when she lashed out at her co-stars Sarah Gilbert and Michael Fishman, attacking them for condemning her racist remarks. Number 13. Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly has built a career on controversy, but some of her most infamous moments have come when race entered the conversation. Years ago, she caused a stir by insisting on air that Santa just is white, laughing off the idea that he could be seen any other way. But it was her remarks about blackface that truly shattered her career. In 2018, during an episode of Megyn Kelly Today, an all-white panel discussed Halloween costumes. Kelly asked, "What is racist? You do get in trouble if you are a white person who puts on blackface on Halloween, or a black person who puts on whiteface for Halloween. Like, that was okay when I was a kid, as long as you were dressing like a character." The backlash was swift and unforgiving. Soon after, Kelly emailed NBC staff trying to apologize for her tone-deaf comments, explaining that she had never been the politically correct type. The next day, she faced the cameras once more, starting her show with a simple, "I want to begin with 2 words. I'm sorry." Oddly enough, her apology was met with a standing ovation, but it wasn't enough to save her. By the end of October, Megyn Kelly was out at NBC, her show cancelled, and her reputation permanently stained. Number 14. Walter Brennan. Walter Brennan, a 3-time Academy Award winner, charmed audiences with his roles in westerns and wholesome family comedies. With his folksy demeanor and grandfatherly smile, he seemed like the embodiment of old-fashioned American goodness. But behind the scenes, Brennan harbored extreme political and racist beliefs that stood in stark contrast to his public image. He fiercely opposed the civil rights movement, dismissing it as nothing more than a communist plot. Paranoid and obsessed, Brennan even built a bunker at his home, preparing for what he believed was an inevitable Soviet invasion. As a proud member of the John Birch Society, he used the trusted voice of his popular character, Grandpa Amos, to spread divisive and racist propaganda. Perhaps most chilling was Brennan's cold reaction to the deaths of prominent civil rights leaders, revealing a deep, ingrained prejudice that shattered any illusions of the gentle old man he played on screen. Number 15. Marlon Brando. Today, Marlon Brando is remembered as a bold supporter of civil rights and Native American causes. But early in his career, the reality was far less noble. In the 1950s and 1960s, Brando's private behavior often clashed with his public image. Behind closed doors, he mocked Native American accents, trivialized their struggles, and treated activists with open condescension. Despite claiming solidarity, he frequently arrived late to events, made decisions without consulting Native leaders, and used their causes to elevate his own reputation. To many insiders, Brando's early activism seemed hollow, more about performance than real understanding. However, Brando's perspective changed. By the 1970s, after witnessing the harsh realities Native Americans faced, he took genuine action. His turning point came in 1973, when he refused to accept the Oscar for The Godfather. Instead, he sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to the stage to condemn Hollywood's portrayal of Native people. The move stunned the world, transforming Brando's legacy from a self-serving celebrity to a controversial but serious voice for justice. Number 16. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's fall from grace is the stuff of Hollywood legend, but buried beneath the scandals and chaos lies a darker chapter few talk about: his history of racist remarks. In 2011, during a fiery radio interview, Sheen crossed a line when he used a racial slur against Chuck Lorre, the creator of 2.5 Men. The backlash was immediate and brutal, forcing Sheen to scramble out a public apology. But by then, the damage was already done. Actress April D. Taylor, a former co-star, later revealed that Sheen often made racist jokes behind the scenes. Other reports surfaced over the years, accusing Sheen of using derogatory language toward black actors and other minority groups, a pattern many found impossible to ignore. Once the highest-paid actor on television, Charlie Sheen's repeated controversies, including the disturbing allegations of racism, slammed the brakes on a career that once seemed unstoppable. After everything Charlie Sheen did, betrayal, addiction, chaos, do you still see him as a true Hollywood star? Type yes if you forgive him, no if you think he's a disgrace. Number 17. Don Cherry. For decades, Canadian hockey icon Don Cherry thrived on a blunt, no-filter style that won him fame on Coach's Corner. Yet over time, his loud nationalism began to grate on viewers. The breaking point arrived in 2019. During what would become his final televised segment, Cherry turned his attention to newcomers in Canada, declaring, "You people love our way of life, love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys paid for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada." The backlash was instant and fierce. Cherry's history of polarizing remarks was long. He had mocked Colin Kaepernick's anthem protest and poked fun at European players for years. Even back in a 1990 CBC interview, he'd bragged about his nationalism while lamenting that immigrants were stealing jobs. But this latest outburst proved one step too far. Sportsnet swiftly cut ties, replacing his next show with a rerun, and soon after, confirming his departure. Company president Bart Yabsley summed up the decision. "Sports brings people together. It unites us, not divides us." Number 18. Taylor Selfridge. Taylor Selfridge rose to fame through reality TV, starring in shows like Are You the One and Teen Mum OG. But behind the bright lights and scripted drama, a real-life controversy would bring her career crashing down. In 2020, Taylor was fired by MTV after old social media posts resurfaced, posts filled with offensive remarks about different races. The discovery ignited outrage. Critics slammed the network for continuing to feature her even after the posts had been exposed. Faced with mounting backlash, MTV quickly announced they were cutting ties, scrapping her upcoming Teen Mum special just hours before it was set to air. Selfridge later tried to defend herself, claiming she had grown since making the comments, but the damage was already irreversible. Once seen as a rising star in reality TV, Taylor Selfridge's reputation was permanently stained. A harsh reminder that what you post online can come back to end a career in an instant. Number 19. Abby Lee Miller. For 8 seasons on Dance Moms, Abby Lee Miller built a brand around her no-nonsense coaching style. Lifetime even greenlit a spin-off, Abby's Virtual Dance-Off. Then a single social media post toppled everything. In 2020, amid Black Lives Matter protests, Miller joined countless celebrities by posting a solid black square on Instagram. Instead of applause, she triggered painful memories for former cast members. Adriana Smith, whose daughter Cameron once danced under Miller, broke her silence. She recalled Miller saying, "I know you grew up in the hood with only a box of 8 crayons, but I grew up in the country club with a box of 64, don't be stupid." The remark, Smith said, revealed how Miller belittled people over race and background. Lifetime acted fast. The network scrapped Abby's virtual dance-off before a single episode aired and severed ties altogether, proof that a black square can't erase a troubling past. Miller issued an Instagram apology, but for many the gesture arrived far too late. A career once powered by tough talk was finally undone by words she could never take back. Number 20, Hartley Sawyer. Sometimes the past has a way of catching up when you least expect it. Hartley Sawyer was riding high, beloved by fans for his role as Ralph Dibny on The Flash for 3 seasons. His career seemed unstoppable until a deep dive into his old Twitter account changed everything. The tweets that resurfaced were shocking. In one, Sawyer joked that the only reason he didn't post more racist comments was because Al Sharpton would never stop complaining about me. Other offensive remarks also came to light, and while he had written them before joining The Flash, they were still his words. After the backlash hit, Sawyer took to Instagram to apologize, insisting he had changed and now believed deeply in equality and representation. But for the CW network, there was no room for negotiation. In a swift and firm move, the network announced that Sawyer would not return for season 7. They released a powerful statement making it clear they have zero tolerance for any kind of derogatory remarks targeting race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, or orientation. Number 21, Lea Michele. For years, Lea Michele was seen as the shining star of Glee, a powerhouse voice and the ultimate Broadway darling. But behind the bright lights, a much darker reputation was waiting to explode. In 2020, as the Black Lives Matter movement swept across the world, Michele tried to show her support online. Instead, her former co-stars stepped forward with accusations that shocked fans. Samantha Ware, who appeared in season 6 of Glee, didn't hold back. She claimed Michele made her life on set a nightmare, accusing the actress of bullying her and making racially charged remarks that left lasting scars. Ware's post opened the floodgates. Other cast members, including Amber Riley and Alex Newell, also hinted at Michele's toxic behavior behind the scenes, painting a picture very different from the star's public image. Lea Michele quickly issued a public apology, blaming her past behavior on immaturity. But for many, the damage was already done. Her endorsement deals crumbled and her once golden reputation faded almost overnight. Number 22, John Mayer. John Mayer rose to fame with heartfelt songs and a polished, charming image. But a single interview from his past revealed a side that many fans never saw coming and struggled to forgive. In a 2010 interview with Playboy, Mayer made comments that immediately drew outrage. When asked about dating women from different backgrounds, he disturbingly claimed to have a David Duke type of preference, referencing a figure infamous for promoting division and hate. As if that weren't shocking enough, Mayer also used racially charged language to describe aspects of his private life, leaving listeners stunned and angry. Realizing the backlash, Mayer quickly apologized, admitting his attempt at being edgy had gone horribly wrong. He confessed he was ashamed and vowed to reflect on his actions and grow from the mistake. But the damage was already done. The scandal deeply tarnished Mayer's carefully built reputation, as fans and critics questioned how someone praised for emotional sensitivity could display such blatant ignorance, a stain on his image that many never forgot. Number 23, Paris Hilton. Most people know Paris Hilton as the glamorous heiress who made phrases like, "That's hot," iconic. But behind the flashing cameras and luxury lifestyle, her story is much more complicated. In her memoir, Paris the Memoir, Hilton pulled back the curtain on a darker past. As a teenager, she was sent to Provo Canyon School, a psychiatric facility, where she says she endured deep emotional trauma. The scars from that time, she revealed, followed her for years, influencing her struggles with PTSD, alcohol abuse, and more. But Hilton didn't stop there. She also confronted a painful part of her own behavior, her past use of racial and homophobic slurs. While she acknowledged that her trauma shaped her judgment, she refused to blame it entirely. "Sometimes I was just wasted and being a f***ing idiot," she admitted, owning up to her actions without making excuses. It was a rare moment of honesty from a celebrity who once seemed untouchable, and a reminder that real accountability doesn't come easy, even for the rich and famous. Albe Salmei. Albe Salmei was a beloved actor, his deep voice and striking looks making him a household name across stage and television. He captivated audiences with his emotional performances, becoming a star adored by many. On the evening of April 23, 1990, an emergency call from Salmei's home set off a chain of events that would shake Hollywood to its core. The police arrived to find both Albert and his wife Roberta dead. It wasn't an accident. Salmei had ended Roberta's life before tragically taking his own. What unfolded next was a heart-wrenching investigation. Tensions had been brewing between the couple for months, with financial pressures and personal differences creating a storm beneath the surface. Those who knew Albert best described him as someone who bottled up his emotions, carrying a heavy burden no one saw. In the end, it was too much to bear. Salmei's death left an indelible mark on the entertainment world. It's a haunting reminder of how fame doesn't always shield people from pain, and how unseen struggles can take a devastating toll. Earl Hayes. In 2014, Hollywood was rattled by a story so disturbing it still echoes in silence today. Stephanie Mosley, a dazzling dancer and actress known for VH1's Hit the Floor and Hellcats, was a rising star with infectious charisma. Her moves lit up the screen and her future was set to shine even brighter. But everything unraveled in the blink of an eye. Her husband, Earl Hayes, an up-and-coming rapper with powerful industry ties, including a close friendship with Floyd Mayweather Jr., lived in the limelight too. But beneath the surface, something far more explosive was building. On the morning of December 8th, neighbors in a luxury Los Angeles apartment complex were jolted by the sound of gunshots. What police found inside was haunting. Stephanie and Earl, both gone. Investigators later revealed that Earl had taken Stephanie's life before turning the weapon on himself. The scene was grim. The entertainment world stood still. What made the tragedy even more shocking? Reports claimed that Floyd Mayweather was allegedly on FaceTime with Earl during the confrontation. Sources suggested that he may have witnessed the horror unfold in real time, unable to stop what was happening. Rumors swirled that jealousy, emotional breakdowns, and betrayal might have played into the fatal end, with whispers that a past relationship involving Mayweather had ignited Earl's spiral. As news spread, stars across Hollywood mourned. Jennifer Lopez, Ashley Tisdale, and Eva Marcille expressed deep sorrow, with Eva calling Stephanie an absolute angel. The heartbreak was raw, the disbelief unbearable. Oscar Pistorius. Reeva Steenkamp was more than just a beautiful model. She was a young woman on the rise, with brains, ambition, and a heart full of promise. Known for her radiant personality and stunning looks, Reeva had already made waves in South Africa's entertainment industry, with notable appearances on shows like Tropper Island of Treasure and Baking Made Easy. Her future was bright and the world was watching. Her romance with Oscar Pistorius, the famous Olympic athlete known as the Blade Runner, seemed like a fairy tale. A double amputee who shattered barriers in the sports world, Pistorius was a global inspiration. The couple's glamorous public appearances painted the picture of a perfect love story. But then everything came crashing down. On the night of February 14, 2013, Reeva's life was tragically cut short. Inside Pistorius's South African home, she locked herself in a bathroom moments before Pistorius fired multiple shots through the door, hitting her 3 times. Pistorius claimed he thought she was an intruder, but his story raised more questions than answers, especially with the number of shots fired and no warning issued. The trial became a media frenzy, with the whole world glued to the courtroom. Pistorius's defense was met with skepticism, sparking a larger conversation about gender-based violence. His initial conviction of manslaughter in 2014 and his subsequent 5-year sentence outraged many who believed it was far too lenient. The case didn't end there. In 2015, an appeals court stepped in, overturning the manslaughter ruling and convicting Pistorius of murder. His sentence was revised from 6 years to 13 years, but the damage had been done. Reva's untimely death left a profound mark on South Africa and the world, igniting important conversations about justice, domestic violence, and the need for systemic change. After his 2024 release, Pistorius now lives quietly in Pretoria with his uncle under parole until 2029. He volunteers at a local church and reportedly dates Rita Grayling, a woman strikingly similar to Reva. You think Oscar Pistorius' story was shocking? The final names will leave you speechless. Commenter 9 if you're still watching and ready for the darkest twists to come. Ray Caruth. Ray Caruth, once a promising NFL player for the Carolina Panthers, became infamous for his involvement in one of the most shocking and tragic incidents in sports history. On November 16, 1999, Cherika Adams, who was pregnant with Caruth's child, was shot multiple times while sitting in her car near his home in Charlotte, North Carolina. In a desperate act, Cherika managed to call 911, informing the operator that Caruth had blocked her car and then fled the scene, when another vehicle pulled up and shots rang out. Cherika was rushed to the hospital where doctors performed an emergency C-section to save her baby, Chancellor Lee Adams. Tragically, despite their efforts, Cherika fell into a coma and passed away a month later. Caruth's actions following the shooting raised immediate suspicion. Though he posted a $3 million bail, he fled when Cherika died, breaching the terms of his release. Authorities tracked him down, hiding in the trunk of a car in Tennessee, carrying money, clothes, and other supplies. During the trial, Caruth's defense team tried to suggest that the incident was related to a failed business deal, but the jury convicted him of conspiracy to cause harm, shooting into an occupied vehicle, and causing injury to an unborn child. Caruth was sentenced to nearly 19 years in prison. After serving 18 years, he was released in 2018 and issued a public apology to Cherika's mother, who had raised Chancellor as her own. Despite the dark chapter in his life, Chancellor grew up to be an inspiring and resilient young man. His story serves as a reminder of the profound impact of one man's actions on the lives of so many others. Appears. Spade Kulie. Spade Kulie, a popular Western swing musician and television personality, became infamous for a chilling incident that forever tarnished his reputation. In 1961, Kulie was arrested after a horrifying altercation with his wife Lea Michele, which ended tragically. The couple's marriage had been troubled for some time, with reports of physical abuse and emotional distress. On the night of April 3, 1961, Spade, reportedly intoxicated, became enraged during a heated argument with Lea Michele. In the midst of the confrontation, Kulie inflicted severe harm on his wife. She suffered severe injuries and was later found lifeless. Initially, Kulie tried to claim that Lea Michele had taken her own life. But the evidence told a different story. Investigators soon uncovered the truth. Lea Michele had been the victim of a violent attack, and Kulie was arrested and charged with her death. Spade Kulie was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. His once promising career, which had seen him rise to fame in the 1940s and 1950s, came crashing down. He spent several years behind bars before his release on parole in 1972. Despite his time in prison, Kulie's legacy as a musician and performer was overshadowed by the horrific events surrounding his personal life. The tragedy remains one of the darkest chapters in the history of Hollywood figures gone wrong. Fay Dawit. In 1965, actress Fay Dawit found herself at the center of a public scandal when she was initially charged with the death of her ex-husband, famed playwright Ray Allen. However, the full story behind the tragic incident turned out to be far more complicated than it seemed. Just a month before the event, Fay and Ray had divorced. Ray had long struggled with alcohol addiction and violent outbursts, and on the night in question, he showed up at Fay's home in a drunken rage. He broke into the house, and his intentions were clearly menacing. Fay, alone and terrified, feared for her life. As Ray advanced toward her, she acted in self-defense. During a chaotic struggle, she grabbed a letter opener, and in the heat of the confrontation, Ray was fatally injured. What started as an act of self-preservation quickly escalated into an unimaginable tragedy. Initially, Fay was arrested and charged with causing Ray's death. The circumstances surrounding his demise raised doubts. However, as the investigation unfolded, the truth became clear. Evidence showed that Ray had been the aggressor and Fay had been injured during the break-in. Witnesses confirmed his volatile behavior, corroborating Fay's claims of self-defense. With these revelations, the charges were dropped and Fay was exonerated. Though the media had sensationalized the incident and cast harsh judgment on her, Fay resumed her acting career. Even at 90, Fay Dawit refuses to fade quietly. In 2024, she returned to the screen as Jan V. Michael in A Man on the Inside, and in 2023 wowed audiences on stage in 70 Girls 70. Her resilience and artistry prove that true talent never truly William S. Burrows. William S. Burrows, the celebrated American writer, found his life shattered by an unfathomable tragedy in Mexico City. At the time, he and his wife Joan were grappling with their respective addictions, Burrows to benzodiazepines and Joan to alcohol and amphetamines. Their strained relationship reached a breaking point on one ill-fated night in 1951. After a night of drinking, Burrows proposed a reckless game inspired by the William Tell legend. He asked Joan to place a glass on her head, daring to shoot it off. But in a cruel twist of fate, Burrows missed his target and the bullet struck Joan in the head, ending her life in an instant. Although Burrows later insisted that the gun had accidentally gone off when he dropped it, witnesses and the surrounding evidence painted a different picture. The result? Burrows was arrested and faced charges of negligent homicide. He spent 13 days behind bars before his brother managed to secure his release with a bribe. The case dragged on with indefinite delays, and eventually Burrows fled Mexico. In his absence, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 years, but the sentence was suspended, though Burrows went on to become a key figure in the Beat generation, influencing countless writers and artists. The haunting memory of Joan's tragic end would forever cast a shadow over his literary legacy. The event would remain an indelible part of his story, a sobering chapter in the life of one of America's most iconic writers. Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious, the bassist of the notorious punk band the Sex Pistols, was the embodiment of chaos. His fame burned bright and fast, fueled by rebellion, self-destruction, and a relationship that was as toxic as it was tragic. At the center of his downfall was Nancy Spungen, a troubled groupie whose life became forever entwined with his. On October 12, 1978, the punk world was shaken when Nancy was found fatally wounded in the bathroom of their New York hotel room. The night before, the couple had hosted a wild party, heavy partying noise and a stream of people coming and going until the early hours. Sid, under the influence and barely conscious, had been in and out of awareness throughout the night. By morning, Nancy was gone. Sid, found staggering and confused in the hotel hallway, gave conflicting accounts, first claiming responsibility, then saying he remembered nothing. At one point, he even suggested that she had fallen onto the knife during an argument. Authorities charged him in connection with her death, but the truth behind that night was lost in a haze of confusion and instability. The case never reached its conclusion. While out on bail, Sid's downward spiral continued. After a prior attempt to take his own life, he lost his battle with substance use during a party on February 2, 1979, passing away at just 21. Sid Vicious became a symbol of punk's darkest edge, a rising star consumed by his own chaos. His tragic end and the unanswered questions surrounding Nancy's death left behind a legacy clouded by sorrow. Russell Neal. As part of the R&B group High Five, Russell Neal helped deliver some of the most iconic feel-good tracks of the 90s. Fans adored the smooth harmonies of The Kissing Game and danced along to I Like the Way. But no one could have imagined that years later Russell would walk into a Houston police station with a cold, emotionless confession that would silence the music forever. It was July 2, 2014, when he calmly told authorities, "My wife is gone." Just like that. No panic, no resistance. Just a statement that would lead investigators to a scene they'd never forget. Inside the home, they discovered the body of 24-year-old Catherine Martinez, his wife and the mother of his 2 young sons. Catherine's life had ended in a deeply disturbing way, and while her children were physically unharmed, their world had been torn apart forever. Left in the care of Russell's mother, they would grow up with a haunting legacy, one shaped by tragedy, not lullabies. "They seemed like a happy couple," said neighbor Raymond Batista. "It's a shock." But as investigators pieced things together, a darker story began to emerge, one the public had never seen behind the smiles and stage lights. In the aftermath, Russell's former music partners wasted no time. Bron's Most Wanted Entertainment issued a public statement cutting all ties. He was no longer part of the group, no longer part of the brand, the brotherhood, or the future. The world had known Russell Neal as a rising star, but fame, as it turns out, couldn't hide what was simmering beneath the surface. After Russell Neal's chilling case, we're curious, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, and let's see how far this shocking story has reached. Tom Neal. Tom Neal was once the embodiment of mid-century cool, a rising star best known for his unforgettable role in the 1945 film noir classic Detour. With movie star looks and the swagger of an amateur boxer, he had Hollywood eating out of his hand. However, Neal's personal life was turbulent, marked by a short fuse and explosive tempers. In public, he was suave. In private, his rage simmered. That fury reached a tragic breaking point on October 2nd, 1965. During an intense argument with his wife, Gail Bennett, things spiraled out of control. In a moment of uncontrolled rage, Neal reached for a gun, and that single act ended Gail's life in an instant. When authorities arrived, they found a scene far removed from the glamour of Neal's on-screen persona. He claimed it was an accident, that he hadn't meant to do it. But those close to him knew the truth was more complicated. Behind closed doors, Tom had a troubling past. Friends described a man who struggled to control his emotions and had a history of violent confrontations. His relationship with Gail had been rocky, often fueled by jealousy and intense fights. The courtroom drama that followed tore apart his Hollywood image, revealing a much darker man than fans had ever imagined. Found guilty and sentenced, Neal's career was over. By 1972, Tom Neal's story came to a quiet, tragic end, alone, disgraced, and forgotten. Years after his release, he died with no fanfare, his name erased from the industry he once ruled. But even now, whispers of his fall from stardom continue to haunt Hollywood's most tragic cautionary tales. Claudine Loner. Claudine Loner was once a celebrated French-American singer and actress, living a life of luxury and fame. Married to the iconic Andy Williams, her world seemed perfect from the outside. But everything unraveled on March 21, 1976, when the tragic death of her boyfriend, Olympic skier Vladimir "Spider" Sabic, rocked her life and the world. The events unfolded in Aspen, Colorado, where Sabic was found dead in his home. Claudine claimed it was an accidental shooting, stating that Sabic was showing her how to handle a firearm when it discharged. But as investigators dug deeper, they found inconsistencies that raised serious doubts about her account. Sabic's position and the distance from which he was shot didn't align with her version of events. The case became a legal drama full of twists. Investigators made crucial mistakes, including taking blood samples and seizing Claudine's personal diary without proper warrants, errors that left key evidence inadmissible in court. Traces of an illicit substance were found in her system, and her diary painted a picture of a relationship under stress. Yet, none of this could be used against her. Even the gun itself was mishandled by non-experts, complicating the case further. Ultimately, Claudine was convicted of involuntary manslaughter, a verdict far lighter than many anticipated. Her sentence? A small fine and just 30 days in jail, served on weekends so she could be with her children. And in particular, what makes the public more angry is that Claudine had vacationed with her defense attorney. The two eventually married. Decades later, Claudine Loner remains a shadow of her former fame. In a surprising twist, she resurfaced in 2023 to list her Aspen estate for $59.5 million, rekindling whispers of a past the world never fully understood. Robert Blake. Robert Blake's life story is one of those that makes you question whether art truly reflects life. A well-known figure in Hollywood, Blake earned fame for his intense roles, particularly in the 1967 film In Cold Blood, where he eerily portrayed a real-life criminal. In a twist of fate, his personal life later echoed the darkness of his on-screen characters in ways that no one could have anticipated. In 1999, Blake married Bonnie Lee Barkley, a woman with a complicated past. Known for her history of deceiving wealthy older men, Bonnie's reputation wasn't exactly pristine. Their marriage was fraught with tension, and it seemed like disaster was always just around the corner. Then in 2001, tragedy struck when Bonnie was found dead in a car with a gunshot wound to her head. The chilling nature of her death sent shockwaves through the public, and all eyes turned to Robert Blake. The actor was arrested and charged with her death, sparking a media frenzy. Allegations surfaced that Blake had tried to hire someone to take Bonnie's life, painting a grim picture of the once-beloved star. However, when the case went to trial, Blake was acquitted, leaving many stunned. The verdict sparked a divide. While some believed he was innocent, others felt that justice had failed. But the story didn't end there. Bonnie's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and this time the court found Blake liable, resulting in a $30 million judgment that devastated him financially. In March 2023, Robert Blake died of heart disease at 89, closing a life as dramatic as any script. Though acquitted, the cloud of suspicion never lifted. Blake's fall from grace serves as a haunting reminder of how life can sometimes mirror the dark roles actors play in ways that no one could have predicted. O.J. Simpson. The O.J. Simpson trial remains one of the most infamous and controversial legal battles in American history. A former NFL legend and Hollywood star, Simpson found himself at the center of a storm after being accused of the brutal deaths of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman, on June 12, 1994, outside Nicole's Los Angeles home. The trial, dubbed the Trial of the Century, began in January 1995 and would dominate headlines for the next 8 months. Simpson's defense team, a powerhouse of top attorneys, including Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro, fought tooth and nail, focusing on the LAPD's racial biases and mishandling of crucial evidence, particularly DNA. One of Cochran's most famous lines, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," referred to a glove found at the crime scene, which became a symbol of the defense's strategy. When the verdict came down on October 3, 1995, the world was stunned. Simpson was acquitted. The outcome sent shockwaves through America, deeply dividing public opinion. Many African Americans saw it as a triumph against systemic injustice, while many others, particularly white Americans, were convinced Simpson had gotten away with murder. Though Simpson was acquitted in criminal court, the battle wasn't over. In 1997, a civil court found him liable for the deaths and slapped him with a hefty $33.5 million in damages, though much of that amount remains unpaid to this day. O.J. Simpson passed away on April 10, 2024, at age 76, after a private battle with prostate cancer. His death reopened old wounds and reignited fierce debates. Was he a symbol of racial injustice or a man who escaped accountability? Even in death, the shadow of his trial refuses to fade. Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit was once hailed as one of the greatest in professional wrestling, a powerhouse of discipline, heart, and unmatched grit. He captured the admiration of millions with his in-ring talent and sheer determination. But on June 25, 2007, everything changed. Authorities arrived at his Fayette County, Georgia home and uncovered a scene that sent shockwaves through the sports world. Chris, his wife Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel were all gone, their lives cut short in a deeply tragic and disturbing chain of events. Investigators concluded that Benoit was at the center of it all and that he had taken his own life after the incident. The world stood still. Fans were heartbroken. How could someone once so devoted to his family and career descend into such darkness? As the investigation dug deeper, experts discovered that Benoit had sustained significant brain trauma from years of brutal wrestling. Combined with chronic depression and reported substance use, these factors painted a haunting picture of a man unraveling from within. Still, no answer could truly explain the devastation left behind. Chris Benoit's legacy is forever shadowed by what happened, not just because of the tragedy, but because it revealed the harsh truth about untreated mental and physical health in high-impact sports. His story is a painful reminder that even the strongest among us can break, and when they do, the fallout can be unimaginable. Gig Young. Gig Young was the picture of classic Hollywood success, handsome, charismatic, and critically acclaimed. With an Oscar win for his haunting role in They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, he seemed untouchable. But behind the camera, his life was unraveling. Just 3 weeks after marrying his fifth wife, Kim Schmidt, a tragic event inside their upscale Manhattan apartment shocked the world. On October 19th, 1978, both Young and Schmidt were found lifeless, their promising new chapter cut short in the most devastating way. According to authorities, inside the apartment at the Osborne, police discovered Young face down, clutching a .38 caliber revolver. Kim lay nearby. The diary found in their home described a joyful recent wedding, giving no hint of the darkness that would soon follow. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises around 2:30 p.m., but the grim discovery wouldn't be made until hours later. To those who knew him, the tragedy wasn't entirely out of the blue. Young had long struggled with alcoholism and mental health issues. He even sought help from Dr. Eugene Landy, a therapist known for controversial methods. After the incident, Young was laid to rest under his birth name in Waynesville, North Carolina, beside his family. His $200,000 estate included the Academy Award he had once cherished, an award that was later reclaimed by his daughter Jennifer in a symbolic act of closure. Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman's life was pure brilliance on screen and absolute devastation off it. A comedic genius loved by millions for his unforgettable roles on Saturday Night Live, The Simpsons, and News Radio, Hartman could light up any room with a single look or line, but no one saw the darkness quietly brewing at home. To the world, Phil and his wife Brynn seemed to have it all: a glamorous Hollywood lifestyle, a beautiful family, and a picture-perfect marriage. But the truth was far from perfect, and the end would be nothing short of catastrophic. On May 28, 1998, the Hartman household in Los Angeles became the center of a national tragedy. While Phil was asleep, Brynn ended his life, then her own, leaving their 2 young children alone in the home. The shock reverberated across Hollywood and beyond. How could something so horrifying happen to such a beloved couple? In the aftermath, toxicology reports revealed a troubling mix of substances in Brynn's system, including alcohol, controlled stimulants, and prescription antidepressants. Combined with long-standing marital tensions, the night turned into one of the most devastating incidents in celebrity history. Those closest to the family were left speechless. Actress Rita Wilson, a longtime friend, said it best: "It made no sense to anyone who knew them. Phil was known as a devoted father, Brynn a caring mother. Nothing added up, which only deepened the heartbreak." Michael Jace. April Jace was a woman full of life, a powerhouse on the track, and a beacon of strength in her community. As one of the top 5 fastest female sprinters in the US in 2011 and a World Championship gold medalist, she wasn't just an elite athlete, she was a beloved mother and a light to everyone around her. But on May 19, 2014, that light was tragically extinguished inside the walls of her own home. That evening, neighbors in Hyde Park, Los Angeles reported disturbing sounds. What followed shook the entire community. Inside the Jace family home, police discovered April had been fatally harmed. The man responsible, her husband, actor Michael Jace, best known for playing a cop on FX's The Shield. But this was no TV drama, it was a real-life nightmare. Their 2 young sons were reportedly inside the house when it happened. Witnesses later testified that Michael had acted with disturbing intent, allegedly tormenting April in her final moments before carrying out the unthinkable. Afterward, Jace reportedly sent a message to April's mother, revealing what he had done and asking her to come to the home, a moment no parent should ever have to face. Michael confessed soon after. During the trial, the depth of the tragedy unfolded. Not only had he taken away a loving mother and respected community figure, but he had destroyed a family in a way that could never be undone. Prosecutors made it clear this wasn't a split-second loss of control. It was cold, cruel, and deliberate. In 2016, Michael Jace was sentenced to 40 years behind bars. Once praised on screen as a hero, Michael Jace now lives in infamy behind the walls of Corcoran State Prison. His haunting final words to April, "If you like running, then run to heaven," still echo in the minds of many. No parole, no second chances, only a lifetime of silence and regret. Jovan Belcher. Jovan Belcher, a linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, appeared to have it all: a successful football career, a young family, and a strong support system. But behind the scenes, his relationship with his girlfriend, Cassandra Perkins, was strained, and these tensions would eventually lead to a devastating outcome. On November 30th, 2012, after Cassandra attended a concert, the couple got into a heated argument when she returned home around 1 a.m. Sources close to the pair later revealed that arguments were a frequent part of their relationship, and this particular disagreement escalated rapidly. After leaving their home, Jovan was found by police around 2:50 a.m. at another woman's apartment, calm and composed. Officers allowed him to stay, but soon after returning home, another confrontation ensued. What followed was tragic. Jovan, in an unthinkable moment of violence, shot Cassandra in front of his mother, who had recently moved in to help care for their young daughter, Zoe. Devastated by his actions, Jovan drove to the chief's practice facility and confessed to the heartbreaking event to team officials. Moments later, as law enforcement arrived, he took his own life, leaving his child without both parents. An autopsy revealed that Jovan had elevated alcohol levels, and further examinations confirmed he had CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a serious brain condition tied to repeated head injuries. The Chiefs went on to play their game the following day, holding a moment of silence for the victims of domestic violence, although they chose not to specifically mention the tragedy. Was Jovan Belcher a victim of mental illness or just a cold-blooded killer? Comment yes if you feel sympathy, no if you think there's no excuse. Let's hear your take. These scandals remind us that fame doesn't erase ignorance, it only hides it better. As the spotlight grows brighter, the shadows grow longer. Some careers recovered, others crumbled, but the stain of racism is not so easily wiped away. Which name shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and remember, in Hollywood, nothing stays hidden forever.